Don't throw away that bacon grease. It can save you money, enhance the flavor of your baked goods, and oh, so many other dishes. And it's a great multitasker around your home too. Americans love bacon. They eat 18 pounds per capita per year of bacon. And boy, that can result in a lot of bacon fat, or what we call bacon grease. But oh, the magic of bacon grease, both in the kitchen and in household uses. It's my secret ingredient in baking, frying, and sauteing. You know, it gives kind of a smoky flavor and enhances the dishes I cook. And it can save you money. Why use oil when you have bacon grease? And I think you can feel good about repurposing something you would otherwise just throw in your trash. So let's look at my favorite ways to store bacon grease for maximum usability and shelf life. You know, my mom used to store bacon grease in a metal coffee tin right next to the stove. She used it a lot in her daily baking and cooking. But experts nowadays say that's not the safest way to store it. Microparticles of bacon can get into the grease, and because it's at room temperature, that grease can go rancid, or what we call bad, quicker. I prefer to keep my bacon grease in the refrigerator or in the freezer. Now, to save the grease, you can either pan fry your bacon or bake it in the oven. But if you're pan frying it, be careful. You don't want to burn it because that will give an off taste to the grease. And 1 pound of bacon baked in the oven will give you about a 1/4 cup of bacon grease. My favorite container is a wide mouth mason jar, but you can repurpose any glass jars that you have. I don't advise using a plastic container because it can warp when the warm liquid hits it. Now let that grease cool a bit before you're going to pour it into your container, because it is darn hot when it comes out of the pan or the oven. Now the next step is very important. You have to get out the small pieces of bacon that are in your grease. And you can do that a number of ways. You can use a fine mesh strainer like this. See how small those holes are? Cheesecloth. And you can use a coffee filter that fits in your jar really well. Or even my favorite, I just put in a piece of a paper towel. And if you wanted to, you could put a rubber band around the top to affix it, but I don't usually find that that's necessary. And then you want to pour your grease slowly into the paper towel or the filter, whatever you are using. And it will take a little time. You just leave it in there and let it drain completely. Now, here's the paper towel. Do you see all those little tiny bits on it? That's what you don't want in your bacon grease, because that can cause it to go rancid. There are even special bacon strainers like this one, and it has a built-in strainer. If you're interested, there is a link below. But I just use mason jars. Your strained grease should turn whitish in color. And if you want to, you can always strain it twice just to make sure you get out all those little bits. So when the grease is in the jar, I put the lid on. And if it's the first time for using the jar, I put on the date, February 3rd, 2024. That way I know the oldest grease in the jar, because I'm gonna stick this in my refrigerator, but every time I make bacon again, I'll pull this back out of the refrigerator, take the lid off, and sift more of that bacon grease through the paper towel. So I'm gonna get layers and layers of bacon grease. And as soon as that is done, I put it in the refrigerator. Now you might be asking, well, how long will it last in the refrigerator? And that's where it gets very confusing online. You'll say 3 months, you'll see 6 months. I can honestly tell you, here's my bigger jar, it lasts longer than 6 months for me. But to be safe, Date it so you know how old your grease is. Now, maybe you don't have the refrigerator space or you prefer storing bacon grease in your freezer. Well, I recommend having smaller sizes so you can just pop out and use as much grease as you want. If you're using it for baking, you may want to use a 1/2 cup measure, or if you're just using it in your frying pan, little ones like this is great. I just use a silicone mold, pour it in, throw these in the freezer for 3 hours or so, pop them out, and then I put them in a bag and I vacuum seal them, date it, and put it back in the freezer. And then I can easily pop out one of these for frying up some greens or whatever I'm cooking. If you're going to use it for actual baking, you're going to want to take them out of your freezer the night before, put them in your refrigerator, and let them thaw first. So how long will they last in the freezer? Well, again, you'll hear anywhere from 12 months to indefinitely. And the truth is, when something is frozen and kept at that temperature, it will last indefinitely. But I recommend rotating through what you have in your freezer. So 12, 18 months, I think, is just fine. My preferred method is in the refrigerator. I have the refrigerator room. I can easily just open the jar and scoop out what I need because it isn't frozen solid. I like the refrigerator method the best. So how do you know when your bacon grease has gone bad? You know, it's gone rancid. Well, your best tool for that is your nose. That's right, your sense of smell. You want to smell your bacon grease. If it has a slightly off smell instead of a slightly smoky smell, then it's probably going rancid and it's time to dispose properly in the trash of your bacon grease. Never dispose it down your drain. You know, don't heat it up and then pour it down the drain because it could clog your pipes and you'd have an expensive plumber bill. But in addition to your nose, you want to look at it. And if the color starts yellowing, you know, going golden almost, then your bacon grease is going rancid. Time to start up another jar. Now you might think, well, bacon grease, it's the same as lard, right? I mean, both of them come from a pig, both of them are fat, both of them are whitish in color, so they're the same, aren't they? Using the same? Well, not entirely, because lard is a neutral flavor, okay? And you do use it in baking and cooking, but bacon grease or bacon fat has a little bit more of a smoky flavor. And it's great to use it in baking and enhancing the flavor of what you're cooking. So they are used a bit differently, but often they can be substituted in recipes. So that smoky flavor I'm talking about can enhance some of the dishes that you routinely make in your kitchen. I love using bacon grease when I'm sauteing up greens. It gives it such a good extra poof of flavor. And I routinely use it when I'm baking biscuits or making a homemade pie crust. And of course, when I'm frying. It is great as a fat in your frying pan. And it has a smoke point of 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 250 degrees centigrade. So, why use this when you can use this and save money? It's a great choice for frying hash browns, making grilled cheese, or just cooking up your morning breakfast. And it's a great substitute for butter or shortening in your baked goods, and you can even use it instead of butter when you're making mashed potatoes. And then crown those mashed potatoes with a wonderful homemade bacon grease gravy. It is so, so good. And you can even make a great tasting vinaigrette for your salad. Just use equal parts bacon grease and apple cider vinegar. and mix in with a little Dijon mustard and some kosher salt and pepper, and you have an amazing bacon grease vinaigrette dressed salad. And believe it or not, there's even a bacon-infused bourbon cocktail made from the bacon grease you save at home. One word of warning: do use bacon fat in moderation, like any fat in your cooking. Bacon fat is a saturated fat, but it has about the same calories and the same fat content as other cooking oils that you may use. Now, there are still many other amazing ways to use bacon grease that have nothing to do with cooking. You can use it as a chrome polisher in your kitchen. I just put a small amount of grease on my cloth and I'm buffing and polishing my chrome refrigerator. I mean, how easy is that? And again, cost effective. And my cast iron pan was getting a bit long in the tooth, so I cleaned it up well, and then I coated all over with bacon grease, stuck it in the oven for 400 degrees for 1 hour, and just look at how beautiful it looks. Almost like new. And did you know that you can make soap from bacon fat? Well, you can. Just watch this video by Emmy Maid. She has a fantastic channel and she shows how easy it is to make bacon grease soap. And you can use bacon grease to make a candle. All you need is a glass jar, put your grease in, put a wick in, and let it solidify, and you have a great candle. I saw this picture on Reddit. And if you want to make your backyard birds happy, then use your leftover bacon grease and birdseed and make a suet cake for them. It will really help them get through a hard winter. And if you're like me and you like to bushcraft a bit, I had always made fire starters from cotton balls and petroleum jelly. But you can also use bacon fat. So you just want to mix it in well, tear apart your cotton ball, and then get a good spark from your ferro rod and look at the fire that produces. Pretty neat, huh? And my leather shoes were looking a bit dingy because I walk in them all winter long instead of putting on boots the way I should. So I rubbed in bacon grease all over my leather shoes, buffed it up, and look at how much better they look. So I hope I have inspired you to not throw away your bacon grease and instead keep it in your refrigerator or the freezer and use it in your daily cooking and for simple household tasks. If you know of other tasks that bacon grease is great for, comment below. And if you're interested in finding the perfect and the best way to store flour, watch this.